you playing?
Hello, and welcome to What the Bleep Are You Playing? A podcast where we play a game, many times bad, and tell you why the bleep we played it. I am Masters of Sean, this is Teras Thomas, and Mason Cassi. And we played... Star Wars, Masters of Teras Cassi.
That's two, Sean. That's two bad fighting games this season.
Not only is that two bad fighting games, this is the second bad Star Wars game you've made us play. 3 strikes and you're out, man.
In fairness, I think that's all for the bad... No, there's more bad PlayStation. I was about to say that's all for the bad PS... Nope, there's no more
I was
bad
going to say there's more bad PS1.
Yeah, this is a game that Thomas and I know talked about before we even started the podcast.
We've talked about this game a lot.
How did it take us this long to play
I
this
think
game?
we
If
just...
you want to know why, because we get distracted easily.
Not
That's
to mention
true.
also,
That is true.
we did play it in between one of the games what we did for the podcast.
Was
we
it
were
in between? I thought it was before we even started.
No,
it was in between
It was-
because I remember me and Sean were thinking about doing the game, but I got the game, and when Sean got it, his disc was broke the fucking half.
Yeah.
So
Jesus.
I got it in half, and then I had to from the place that I ordered it. I was like, "Hey, picture of it. This happened," and they're like, "Oh,
like, oh no.
would you? We don't. That's the last copy we had. Would you like other game or credit?" And then it came back in stock, and I bought it later. But
Okay.
we're gonna just from the beginning. This is not a good fighting game.
No, it's
like
not.
this is not, and it is saddening as one of the 2 Star Wars fighting games out there. I'm not gonna count the Revenge of the Sith mini game as a fighting game, but that is
or like the Force Unleashed Smash Clone, because
But-
those are modes.
There are game modes. This is only one of 2 true fighting games, and so it is kind of this important special thing. But this game is not good.
It's a shame because there's a lot of good ideas for a Star Wars fighting game. Tipping my head very early. There's a lot of good ideas to do for a Star Wars fighting game. This game has some of them. It's just that it was right around the time Tekken was becoming huge. Tekken was everywhere. People loved Tekken. And people were like, we want that for our next fighting game. Problem is, Namco seemed to be the only one who could get the 3D realm, 3D space right.
It was
The 3D fighting space
yeah.
specifically.
Yes.
While I think the PlayStation has a lot of really good traditional 2D fighters.
Yes.
We played one of them in
We've-
Gundam
yeah, we've-
on the PlayStation. Albeit that was 5 years after this game.
Didn't we play?
Damn.
Didn't we play a Dragon Ball fighting game on the PlayStation?
We played on the PS2. When
We played the
Budokai.
PS2. That's
Yeah.
right. But that was
Budokai.
That was
Budokai,
Budokai.
that's right.
But
Anyways.
and we also played Super Dragon Ball Z on the PlayStation 2 as well. But this is because of, as Thomas said, Tekken was big, and LucasArts hadn't developed for the PlayStation, and so they decided to develop a game on the PlayStation in kind of that Tekken style. And you combine those 2 things. They had never developed a game for it, this system, and they're trying to copy a style that hadn't been really copied at this point.
all this, and plus the lead, the project lead had done literally nothing else before this.
Yeah, we did a console tier list a while ago. It might be up on our YouTube at this point. I don't fucking know. And we talked about how the PS1 won the 90s. The
Yes.
PS1 dominated the 90s. If you were a Star Wars fan, you bought an N64.
Yeah, that's true.
You really did.
You really did, because that had what?
That had Shadows of the Empire, that had Episode 1 Pod Racer.
Pod Racer. It had Rogue Squadron.
Rogue Squadron, yes. That had all the good Star Wars games. PS1 had this.
Was that really? Oh yeah. Well, it had this.
It
had
episode one
Episode
would
1.
come out. It had a few other. It had a couple of flight based games.
Right.
It wasn't until PS2 that LucasArts and Star Wars got games right.
Where you would get stuff like
Battlefront,
Battlefront,
yeah.
Republic Commando,
Revenge Racer, Star Wars Episode 3,
Revenge of the Sith. So funny that they skipped. It's still so funny to me that they skipped a movie because they were like, we got to get Revenge right.
Yeah, because Attack of the Clones has that game, but it's more based all around that just the Geonosis battle that was packaged with Tetris.
Yeah, the Clone Wars one that was more vehicle based.
An Attack of the Clones game would be the most boring game ever.
You?
Yes, I've seen Attack of the Clones.
What are you on? Are you serious? That
one has the gladiator arena.
Yes, the gladiator.
That seems
the gladiator arena.
Obi-Wan Django.
You want to talk about what would be the most boring Star Wars movie to make a game out of? They fucking made it. It's Phantom Menace.
That's true. They
Doors open.
I'll kill
Let's
you.
Go.
I'll kill you.
But
you're right. That movie is more boring than Attack. I had forgotten about the good parts of Attack of the Clones because they're kind of few and far between.
Completely tangent.
I love Attack of the Clones.
You like Star Wars. You're a stupid whore for Star Wars.
I am a stupid whore for Star Wars. You are correct.
I'm not saying this as an insult because I am a stupid whore for other shit. I'm just saying this as a matter of fact.
On the inside.
We just a few weeks ago we played Cars. Mason is a stupid whore for cars.
Hey, speaking of whores, that's a character in this game.
It's true.
There's a character named Whore.
Which is a Tusken Raider, which would then get a bunch of weird extra backstory, and also has a tie-in to Attack of the Clones later on.
It all comes full circle.
This is... I don't want to say this is the most Legends Star Wars game out there, because there are obviously, I think KOTOR is probably the most
KOTOR,
Legends.
and I'm pretty sure Shadows of the Empire.
Shadows of the Empire, because that had a book tie-in, and a couple others. And then, The Force Unleashed had a lot of stuff as well.
And the Rogue Squadron games had
Look, if you had a Star Wars game, a lot of stuff. But this game is absolutely trying to borrow characters from the Legends. The fact that Mara Jade is playable and unlockable. We did not unlock it. It is really hard to unlock characters, and they did not give cheats, and we are bad at video games.
Well, it's not that. It's not like the process itself on paper is difficult, because it's just like, win in arcade is this character, win in arcade is this. So it's a simple process, but it's incredibly hard to do.
There's just one little asterisk that's like, oh, you have to be good. And we're like, damn.
But it has...
Foiled again.
It has
Choices.
Luke, Han, Leia, Chewbacca. Leia has 2 characters, another one unlockable. You can unlock Darth Vader, Boba Fett, Hor, who's a Tusken Raider we talked about, Thok, a Gamorrean guard, another really cool character they added.
Look, everybody makes fun of Hor. Thok's funnier to me because it's a sound effect. They made a character that this man was born into the world, and his parents were like, "What do we make? What do we name this guy?" Someone was killed outside by a club, and they're like, "I got it."
I wonder if this is going to be Star Wars nerd coming out of there. I wonder if his name is more based on a translation of the Gamorrean guards snorting, because they're like, and they said, "What's your name?" And they're like, "Fuck."
What's your name? Snort sound effect.
It's really, what's really funny is something that just now hit me. We have Hor, who's a Tusken Raider, that's given a name. We have Thok, a Gamorrean guard, who's given a name. What the hell is the Stormtrooper's name? Why does the Stormtrooper have a name?
Stormtrooper is just named Stormtrooper.
Just Stormtrooper. What is his name? I need a whole origin story for the Stormtrooper in this game, like there is a whole origin story for the one that hits his head on the door in A New Hope. I need that.
That is where I was actually going to go on this next thing, was Stormtrooper doesn't get anything. He
doesn't get a name. He's just Stormtrooper.
Okay, look, I know it's a fighting game. You got a horny bait. But if it were me, I would have taken out Bikini Leia. Where's my fucking Jawas? I need to play as a Jawa. I need to be fighting Luke Skywalker and Houdini break his knees.
And then there's only the other interesting character in this is Jodie Cost, who is, a shot of a bounty hunter in Mandalorian armor that was not Boba Fett in Empire. that then had an entire comic run all about that him and Boba's rivalry.
Because it was Star Wars.
It's Star Wars.
And back in the day, it was like, that character looks cool. Okay, they get everything.
Yeah, which is legitimately, if you go back and you watch the original trilogy and they're like, Boba Fett? He doesn't do anything. And they're like, but look at all the lore. And like, just people thought he was cool. And so they built this whole lore about it, which then got, of course, George going like, well, I kind of liked his father a little more. I was more interested in telling that story, but your Boba Fett's cool. That's fine.
You have a really good.
I was going to bring that up. I was just about to say that.
But I think
Can I get that part isolated and use it as my ringtone?
But I think the most interesting part of this game is that they created a character for this game. Mm-hmm. And actually a really cool design for a character that was even supposed to be even more androgynous than it was. But it's basically the Emperor hires a bounty hunter to go get revenge for the Death Star destruction, which is a story that's been done in multiple different comics, different ways. There's actually a canon comic where Boba Fett's basically charged to do that. But, and his name, Arden Lin. I just found that very interesting, considering that Mara Jade, this is one of her only appearances in a video game, is just, literally, that's her job. Like, that's what she would do later on, is go try to get revenge on the Emperor's death against Luke. And it's just like, you have Mara in here, and then you did the bounty hunter, because I think they wanted to create their own character for the story, which is cool because it's a good design.
They wanted to make their own character, I think, because everybody wants to make their own Star Wars character. Like, even if you're not a big fan of Star Wars, deep down, you're like, if I had the chance, I'd make a Star Wars character.
Oh, 100%. It's why a lot of, why KOTOR is so big with the character creation and things like that, and that you got to truly kind of embody a Star Wars character. You got to be your own character. I think is that the only Star Wars game with character creation?
Yep.
I believe so.
As far as I know.
Unless
you count the Lego ones.
Yeah, the Lego ones.
Oh, yeah, the Lego ones.
You can also do a decent amount of, in the new Jedi Survivor, you can do a lot with Cal's look.
I mean,
definitely.
yeah, but that's
he's still Cal.
I was going to say, but he's still Cal at the end of the day.
Which is why I think about KOTOR, it's very hard for them to ever try to adapt it because Revan can be literally the insert playable character. There are people who are like, what do you mean Revan's a guy? I always played it as a girl. Revan's a girl. Like,
right. That's kind of the problem. Tangent. That's the problem with adapting any RPG. Mm-hmm. It's like whenever you see Skyrim stuff, it's like it's always the base Dovahkiin with the helmet and everything, and it's always like, what if I played as a cat dude, or what if I played as a lizard man, or something? Because that's, again, odd tangent. I never play as humans in RPGs. Mm-hmm. I never like playing as humans because I'm like, I'm a human. I want to be something else.
I want to really be in this role.
Yeah. I want to play this role. God damn it.
Jedi Academy, that has a little bit of character.
I think, yeah, you're right, it does.
And I remember because I was playing that game and I was like, you can be what fucking Plo Koon is? That's me, baby.
You can choose your race in Star Wars Connect. Does that count?
I'll smack you.
I'll take that as a no.
I mean, it does, but...
It does. You notice that our early talk about this is the characters and kind of the behind the scenes. It's a fighting game. It's a fighting game trying to be Tekken.
It's a fighting game and it's a bad fighting game.
That's the truth.
I will be the first to admit I haven't played a lot of fighting games.
We know.
That being said, I think this might be the worst fighting game I've ever played.
Oh no, but it's not good. But it's.
I was gonna say
we played Dragon Ball Evolution earlier in the year, albeit that was.
Well, that's a fine playing game.
Yeah.
It's just the whole surrounding thing that made it bland.
I think that this actually...
Okay.
You know what? Okay.
You did not like Budokai, and you did not like Yu Yu Hakusho Dark Tournament.
I think this is tied, actually, with Yu Yu Hakusho, actually.
All right.
I'll have to... I don't really want to replay either of these, but I was like, if I really want to make a comparison, I have to go back and replay Yu Yu Hakusho, because it's been so long
Meanwhile,
since I played that.
This is not a good fighting game, but me and Sean have played
it's Dragon Ball GT Final Boot on the PlayStation, and that one.
Admittedly, it was easier to beat arcade mode because you pick Kid Goku and he can't be fucking hit.
Yep.
And was that the one that Atari made?
Yeah.
Yep. And Steve Bloom was Goku.
Oh, yeah.
And Goku and all the Gokus, because there's like five fucking Gokus in that game.
quote-unquote friend of the podcast, Steve Bloom. Steve Bloom doesn't know that we exist, but God, we know he exists and we love him.
Steve Bloom don't know us.
No matter how many times I tag him in a tweet about
Notice a Steve Bloom.
Just gonna be outside his house. Notice a Steve Bloom with a fucking QR code that leads to the podcast, and he calls the police.
Notice me. No.
Anyway, yeah, the game itself, it's just... I hate to be that guy, but it's bad Tekken.
It's what it is. It very much...
It's,
and even
it's bad Tekken. It's slow Tekken. Like, with the exception of... What is the name of the girl?
Ardenlin.
Ardenlin. With the exception of her, who is like... It feels like they made her to be a fighting game character. Like, that was the thing. They wrote fighting game character down, and they built her off that, it feels like.
She has a Hadouken and Soryuken.
Yeah, and a fucking Chaos Blast.
Yeah, like
I know that's not a fighting game thing, but it should be. Where's my fucking 2D Sonic Fighter? Anyway.
And I think actually that's a great way to spin off on it, is on the PlayStation. This is a problem with a lot of the PlayStations outside of Tekken and Soul Blade, Namco.
Right.
The 3D fighters always feel slow and clunky. The 2D fighters feel more like the arcade fighters with speed, and you feel their combos and your moves. And they hadn't figured out how to make 2D fighters feel more fluent, easy to flow, going through things.
It's one of the reasons why I do actually prefer Yu Yu Hakusho to this, because that at least felt quicker.
I think,
I don't mind. Sorry, I don't mind a slow feeling fighting game. Gundam felt a little slow, but you get used to it. That's the thing. But this was just like,
slow with good controls and controls that react. And I think that's the thing about the Gundam is you never felt that in this game the amount of times on the ground, get up.
That was
Get up.
That was the thing about because the thing about Gundam is that it felt purposely slow because you're playing as these massive robotic machines. Of course, they're going to move slow. It doesn't feel like purposely Teras doesn't feel purposely slow. It feels like a design flaw.
Yeah.
like
a major design oversight.
like Chewbacca. That would make sense for him to be slow. He's a big beefy character. Thok, it makes sense for him to be slow. Big beefy character. Luke shouldn't be this slow.
Luke shouldn't be that slow. Leia shouldn't be that slow.
It all just feels clunky, I think is the best way to describe it. But not like in like a movement way, but more of in like a input and everything feels slow with it.
Right. And that... I'm the fighting game guy out of the three of us, which means I'm still dog shit. But maybe I was fucking up, but I swore to God I put in command inputs right as they said in the manual, and they didn't do shit.
It was so hard to get moves off at times. And again, like, I know we're not the best at fighting games, and we're not big moves and all these sort of things. But man, it just felt like it wasn't responsive at times. Which again, this is not the only 3D PlayStation fighter that feels that way.
No.
But it everything felt like a step behind. And when you take up the arcade level to the highest, when you are always feeling like you're a step behind the computer, the game felt near impossible.
Yes.
It's not Yu Yu Hakusho is impossible, where they just threw a ton of armor on the character and made it,
made your health
drain, drain and turned up the difficulty.
Yeah.
It's more of it felt like I'm doing things and it's not responding.
Yes. It didn't feel it felt like like I'm trying to figure out a way to verbalize this, but when the fights got harder in Yu Yu Hakusho, it felt like it was purposeful. It didn't feel like bullshit. In this game, it does. Well, it feels even more bullshit.
I disagree.
I disagree.
But that's also because I played to the final boss and nearly had a fucking quadruple bypass.
Yu Yu Hakusho's final boss is notorious because they just throw. They make his more or less plotter armor on him that he's impossible to beat. In this game, it's not that they're like harder to hit, harder to, they're not, their health isn't bigger, their defense isn't necessarily better. It just feels like they're a step faster than you.
It's going back to the Yu Yu Hakusho episode when I when we talked about the Yu Yu Hakusho game, I brought up input reads. Mm-hmm. When a fighting game will just read your inputs before and block before you can do anything about it. Mm-hmm. Like what Mortal Kombat 2 did back in the arcades. This feels like kind of another way of doing that. Mm-hmm. Where you're too slow. And you just... It feels like it reads your inputs, but instead of making the characters faster, it makes you slower.
Mm-hmm. It's like
that
an
makes any
overcorrection.
sense. Yeah, ultimately. And I guess I could get that if this was an arcade fighting game. Mm-hmm. Like if you could actually play this in an arcade and it's like, hey, we want to scam some kids. Sure, that's scummy, but I get it. But this is a PS1 fighting game.
Yeah, that was never developed for the arcade. It was developed for the PS1.
Right, so it's like, I know.
And I think that's probably the best way we can sum up the gameplay. It's frustrating, especially in the one player. Two players, fine, but again, if you're playing with friends, you can find some fun in the two-player combat.
Yeah,
but in the end, it's not necessarily good two-player combat. Because again, when you and I played Yu Yu Hakusho against each other, we had a decent amount of fun playing the two-player game.
Right.
Because it wasn't as unfair. And this one, it's not as like the unfairness. It's just like it feels like still you're having input issues. Where it's just like, yeah, we're winning, yeah, we're playing, yeah, we're fighting each other, but it doesn't feel like I'm actually succeeding in the two-player.
The thing about this, like, I feel bad for saying things like this is possibly the worst fighting game that I've played, even though I think they're true. But I do feel bad for it because we've played games like this before that were victims of the hardware, and this is definitely a victim of the hardware and the team that was on it. I feel like if it was.
Maybe a little bit.
If there was more time spent on it, if there was a more experienced team working on this game, there was potentially a great fighting game here.
You know,
it's just not this game.
If Namco had decided that Tekken was going to be a 2D fighting arcade game system and they're like, it was super popular, what would they have done on this? Probably copied Tekken.
I was going to say,
2D.
It's also like, well, imagine this game came out, say, 10 years later. Imagine this game came out in 2009, they'd be copying Street Fighter 4.
Mm-hmm.
They would.
Do a typical 2D fighting game.
You know, 4 or 5 years earlier, you're copying
Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
So.
And so
a couple years after Mortal Kombat 9, you'd be copying Street Fighter 5. Was that after?
It was after. No one really copied Street Fighter 5 because no one really liked Street Fighter 5. Street Fighter has this weird thing where all the odd number entries suck. Except 3. 3 is some people's favorite. But it was panned at release.
Ouch.
For absolute bullshit reasons. I will not get into it here, but there is some bullshit. Yeah, I will get into it here. Outdated. Yeah, I will get into it here. Fuck it. Outdated graphics was one of the complaints. Look at the graphics of that game. Tell me they're outdated with a straight face, and I'll call you a fucking liar. Anyway.
Tune into our future episode on Street Fighter 3.
Maybe. But I think they have a very good idea. I think conceptually this game is a very good idea. I think it's an interesting story, albeit arcade mode doesn't really. There isn't really a story mode to show it. It's again. You read the opening. You at the end of arcade mode, you have another little thingy. You know what happens.
Yeah, you get character endings, which I know doesn't sound like a lot. Oh, you're complimenting a fighting game for character endings. Yeah, because we've played some that don't have them. And yeah, character endings are fun. I'm a big fan of character endings. So like, yeah, that's I'm okay with filming. And again,
I do think design wise, like we can talk about the dumbness of the stage select being locked in a second. But the stages were really cool. Like legitimately, the Star Wars stages were all like you play in on Endor with all the stuff going around. You play on Hoth. You play at Jabba's palace, Dagobah. Like, there's just a lot of different, like, although it's Star Wars planets with lots of little stuff going in the background. On Dagobah, R2-D2 just going around in the background. Like, they're cute and, like, good design levels. You don't get to choose the levels unless you beat arcade mode with Chewbacca at the highest level.
And that's really
Why? Why would they... we made the comparisons while we were playing it. That'd be like in a racing game not being able to pick what car you want until your 10th race. Or, like... Is something like
in a platformer, if you're not able to pick up the next collectible until you ass bounce 3 enemies or whatever.
Yeah, you can't get the fire flower in Mario until World 3.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
it's so annoying.
in fairness, Mario World does have a lot of levels that then open up stuff for later stuff that allow you to get different power-ups.
But Mario
it's a
World
good game.
doesn't. Yeah, but Mario World doesn't. You collect the fire flower. It doesn't punch you in the face like, bitch, you don't get that.
That would be very weird if my Super Nintendo tried to punch me in the face. But
Just gains consciousness. Punch you with one of the
the
controllers.
Power Glove comes.
I love the power glove.
But I don't even
makes me
own
feel
one. Too
bad.
But I do think that while a lot of the art design and all the look is great, there's just so many flaws with the design in this game. And I'm not even just talking about the fighting design. I'm talking about the locked levels. I'm talking about how simplistic some of the sound design is in this game. How while the menu is there, it is again, it's a menu. At least we have a game with a menu. We've had games that haven't, but it's not the most.
It's a very bland menu.
It's not
And
great UI.
I know it's trying to replicate the text. That's the thing. It's trying to replicate the Star Wars text that goes up. Cool, but you could do something cooler with it.
It was another fighting game that when you paused, it didn't have a move list, did it?
I don't remember.
I don't think it did.
didn't see
I
it.
paused.
I
I'm
was
pretty
gonna
sure it
say-
didn't.
I mean, we had the manual, so the
So,
move
yeah,
lists
yeah.
are in the manual, but also I don't know.
That's just something that's again, I understand. Yeah, you had the manual, so a lot of times you didn't have it. But even a lot of older games still have pause to see the move list in
Right,
game.
like Mortal Kombat, I believe has that.
So it feels very basic, and for a game that had a lot of time and money poured into it, and as Mason has pointed out, the development team was not familiar with the hardware, and really wasn't a team that had done stuff beforehand. You can see a lot of that in this game. That it's just, sadly, for as good of a concept it is, it needed to be maybe this team's third or fourth game.
It needed some time in the oven, is I think what it is. Because it's not baked, if that means it. They had all the ingredients together, they mixed it, but they shipped it out before they could put it in the oven.
I think this game also would have benefited from waiting a little bit for technology to evolve a little bit more. I think this was
the PS2.
I think this was a PS2 or especially a Dreamcast game.
Well, remember,
It would be
considering
a lot better.
it came
Yeah.
from Sega or Capcom would come and would propose Star Gladiators.
Yeah, that's one of the most fascinating
Before this
stories to
game.
me. Star Gladiators is an old Capcom franchise, one of 1,652,000 they haven't touched in a while, but it was originally Capcom was pitching that as a Star Wars game, and they thought it was too radically different, I guess, because the thing is, this was before the prequels, where Jedi was just doing all this flippy bullshit. So I guess they wanted it to be a bit more grounded in order to reflect the lightsaber fights from the original trilogy, which I do get that. But Capcom was like, well, okay, we made all these assets anyway. We're going to make anime Star Wars, basically. So,
And I think I will push a little bit back on the game in development there. This game almost had a 2-year development cycle, which at that time is a massive development cycle.
I agree, but
It's still, I think, and so when I push back on saying like the time in the oven, I think it needed to be more of a team that knew how to develop for the system in fighting games is more saying
What were
that.
they doing that whole time? Was this the first full year dedicated to just playing Tekken?
so
Learning how to develop for the PlayStation.
Fair enough.
Like that's the problem is it took so long because they were learning things.
So it's less they didn't put the cake in the oven, and more they put the cake in the oven, but they knew how to fucking grill, not bake.
They were like, it's more they're like,
They put it on. Yeah.
oh no, we've got this oven's from another country and we don't understand how to read it.
It's like going up to the team. Hey, we need you to bake this cake. We're astronauts. What do you do? What are you coming to us with?
What's a cake?
What's a cake?
But and I think that again, there's a lot of things that went wrong in this development because of it.
I like that implies astronauts can't bake.
Exactly. If you've spent too much time in school learning physics and science.
I don't know
and stuff.
why that was the first thing I thought of.
I know, but it's funny to imagine that the astronaut can do all these things. That they're one of the most amazing things you can be as a person. But when it comes to baking cake, they're like, "Fuck!
What are we doing? This game needed.
So that's why there's no cake in Star Wars. There's no cake in outer space.
So if you're
this
one
game
place
sucks.
This game needed like a Gordon Ramsay type figure to come in and just yell at everybody.
Like, look at this. Like, this episode is kind of off the rails, but we literally tangent for an hour before hitting play because we couldn't stop talking about random subjects left and right. Yeah, this episode was going to be a little weird because you know what? This game, as much as I appreciate it,
weird.
this game is just, Mason says it all the time. It's one of the games.
It is one of the games.
It's like it's not the worst thing I've ever played
No.
or whatever. It's not even close.
Not even close. It's not even the worst Star Wars game.
It's not the worst Star Wars game. It's not the worst fighting game. It's not the worst of anything. But it is one of those things where it's like, huh, well, that's sad. That's wasted potential.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be the biggest thing. Is they kind of had an opportunity to do something really special. And as you said, the Nintendo 64 Star Wars games were pushing boundary of games and different genres. And this is one that was just like, well, it's in the genre.
What if Tekken, but not good?
This game's only claim to fame is that it's one of the only Star Wars fighting games. It's like saying this rock is one of the only rocks of its kind. Cool, it's just a rock.
I think your metaphor may have fallen apart a little bit there, but
so.
Just a little bit. But it's all good. It's all good. Mason tried very hard.
Well, then let's try something like this. It's one of the only Star Wars fighting games out there. That's cool, but it's kind of like saying Madam Web is one of the only Sony-verse movies out there.
There you go.
Cool. But it's a Sony-verse movie.
There you go.
Topical.
That's a lot better than
even
what I
that
said.
doesn't work because the Sony-verse movies are bad at conceptual level. They just are.
We may have tangent a bit about new movie release, Madam Web. Hey, this will come out.
This dates the podcast.
Don't worry.
But
I think even if the movie wasn't out yet, that would like even if Madam Web was. I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't
Even
know.
if Madam
Do
Web
any of us know where we're going?
I don't know what I was trying.
But like even then, that doesn't really work because again, Sonyverse movies not great on a conceptual level. Nobody wanted a Morbius movie except this motherfucker. And I'm pointing at myself because it's a podcast you can't see. But a Star Wars fighting game is good. Like that as a concept is good. The issue is that both times it's been attempted just pure fighting game.
The word war is literally in the title. This series is all about fighting and just can't
I think, I'll say, they haven't tried the 2D arcade fighter. Because I think you go crazy and go, look, you could go, I don't know if you have to go as much as the speed and craziness, but Marvel vs. Capcom style Star Wars.
That's kind of what I was
That
thinking.
is exactly
do
what
Marvel
I-
vs.
Yes.
Capcom style Star Wars with all the
Yes.
all the speedy bullshit you can do with the Force powers. The
Please.
absurd amount of characters because Star Wars has, oh my god.
So many characters. So many characters.
And you know what? We've already had a fighting game that has had Star Wars characters in it. That would be a really good basis for a Star Wars fighting game. Soul Calibur 4. It would be a really good, that'd be a really good basis for a Star Wars based fighting game.
Honestly, part of me probably want to save this for the question, but whatever. Part of me wonders if they didn't do 2 Star Wars games for 2 different eras. Like prequels, you do Marvel vs. Capcom. You do that flippy dippy bullshit because that's what the prequels are all about, and you can pick like young Ahsoka, young Anakin, young Obi-Wan,
Or you can go further back and have different lots.
have fucking Revan. I don't know.
Oh, I was going to say just like Plo Koon, or you can go further back. You have like you could have Jedi Dooku, or later Master Dooku. You can have Qui-Gon.
That guy with the really tall head.
Ki-Adi-Mundi.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy who's apparently a prick. I don't know.
You can have Kit Fisto.
I don't
Anybody
know.
here remember Kit Fisto?
I do. I
Yes,
love Kit
because
Fisto.
Kit Fisto fucking rules.
Yeah, Kit
That's
Fisto is
unironically
awesome.
one of my favorite Star Wars designs of all
It's
time.
such a good design.
It's a really good design. And a great name, too.
Yep.
Kit Fisto. What a great name.
That being said, my favorite one-off Star Wars Jedi is Plo Koon because that is my absolute favorite Star Wars design. I don't know what it is. His little bug fucking face. But yeah, I do that, and then for the stuff after, like the sequels, original shows,
Which are a
stuff like
lot
that,
more slower
a lot more
paced.
slower, stuff like that. That's when you would go with a Soul Calibur. That's when you would go with these weapons need to feel like they hurt, something like that.
Yeah, you could do it in multiple different styles. Heck, you could even now, if you really wanted to do more of a Tekken style with maybe less of the lightsaber users, or a Street Fighter type style, either of those, you can still do it because there are so many characters that don't wield lightsabers in this universe.
That is
Look,
true.
If I was playing a Star Wars fighting game and Boba Fett started the match by just tossing his carbine rifle and just being like, all right, square up, bitch, that'd be the funniest thing of all time.
It's just, there are a lot the universe has a lot of potential, and yeah, we maybe have given a little bit
Tipped
of our
our
hand
hands.
for this language, but it's a good thing to talk about here. It's like, it is a lot of potential, and I think in the end, the biggest thing about this game and the biggest kind of disappointment is it is a little bit of wasted potential.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because...
And it's
I feel-
potential that we have never really gotten again outside of a Wii game. That isn't,
which is apparently also mid.
yeah.
And, like, that's the thing. Like, I don't think this game would be looked upon as harshly. Because it's considered like, oh, it's one of the worst PS1 games ever. Bitch, have you played any of the other fucking
In
PS1
the
games?
massive PS1 library, it's a bad game, but it's not in.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not like bottom
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
Again, fucking, there was a worse Star Wars game on the system. But, like, I don't know. I don't think this game would be looked upon as harshly if there were another Star
If there had
Wars
been
fighting
Teras
game.
Kasi 2
Yes.
or another couple of fighting games, if this was one of 5 or 6 different Star Wars fighting games,
Yeah, it
even if
would-
they were all in the Teras Kasi franchise,
It would be like the first Street Fighter. That game's shit when you actually play it. Or at least not great. But no one cares because Street Fighter 2 happened.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we played Soul Blade on the podcast, and like that game is not bad. That game
No,
is
that
good.
game's good.
It's really good. But you know what games are remembered more? The Caliber franchise that came after
Caliber,
it.
Caliber 2, Caliber 4.
Yeah, like these three games are remembered because of what they are. And this game, we've talked about this a lot about games that that you feel like if they had gotten a sequel, another one, or another game, I think we would look differently because we would look at more as a growing process to the next game. And this is a game that, because of it's not very good, and because while it had a good holiday sale when it came out, it did not make the amount of money they really wanted. Like, it did very well for the holiday '97, and then it didn't do much else after that.
Right.
Ouch.
So,
And so, like, and that is just at the beginning of what would become one of the biggest Star Wars crazes ever, as we were just a couple years away from Phantom Menace and all the products that came with that.
yeah. You say what you will about the prequels. They had a lot of cool shit.
Especially Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace was everywhere. And all the products, the toys, the tie-ins, like, again, to date this podcast, Star Wars Episode 1 is coming back to theaters this year in 2024. And I actually was like,
It is.
I was like, man, hey Pepsi, why don't you make the Pepsi cans again? Bring back
There's
the
those Pepsi cans.
Pepsi cans, because I collected those back in the day. Like, it's just This is in a lot of ways because of what Star Wars, the popularity over the next couple of years would just shoot through the roof of an already hugely popular franchise. It's just kind of this middle ground game that just kind of exists, sadly, while other games around it were excelling.
It's a 4 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's not great. It's not good. But I've played worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there you go. You can put that on your tagline box, Art Teras Kasi. I've played worse.
Thomas, what the bleep?
And who?
But on this podcast, we ask 2 important questions of every game that we play. The first is, how does it hold up?
4 out of
Gee.
4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Just a
Artistically, fine. I mean, again, a lot of the models are kind of have really aged. Luke Skywalker looks like a Lego.
Luke Skywalker got that Lego
They've
face.
aged. Boba Fett is weirdly green.
You brought it up at one point.
Boba Fett looks like an army man. I just realized
You
that.
brought it up while we were playing that one of the, I can't remember which character it was, but one of the character models, like its leg, their leg like was
Oh, that was Arden
detached
Lin.
from
Arden
their
Lin.
body. Yeah.
Yeah.
The model work is kind of meh, but that's par for the course for the PlayStation 1 fighting
Yeah,
games.
I'm not.
So I'm not gonna there, but I do think the art design as a whole is really good on this game. Like, I think the art styles, Arden Lin is a really cool character. Hor, I think, is a really cool, taking the Tusken Raider and making kind of a character out of it. Like, I like the art designs of this game, and I think that part does hold up. Everything else
around it.
It said Thomas made a comment while we were playing about how MP3 file insert here, next to MP3 file here.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's something a lot of fighting games do.
Mm-hmm.
but it's just extremely noticeable here. So,
This game,
I mean, it's still noticeable today, so I'm not going to hold that against the fucking
it
game.
it is one of those that I think, and all I say is that like because of everything, because of the way it is, there's only such a level it could hold up to because it's just kind of it's just kind of there. It's kind of messy.
It exists.
It exists. It's not the worst. It's definitely not the best.
It's like you know what it.
That one you can put on the box from me.
Yeah, there you go.
It's not the worst. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst.
You know what,
Sean, what the bleep?
It's just not dot not the worst.
You know what it plays like? It plays like a prototype for a Star Wars fighting game.
Yeah.
It's like remember you ever seen the footage of like what the original Smash Brothers like what it was like the base game
Yeah,
that
the
it was
polygons.
what it's like Dragon King the fighting game I think.
Yeah, something like that.
That's what it reminds me of
Yeah.
a lot. So
Yeah.
that's how it's aged.
It can only hold
like
up
a
so
prototype.
much. And again, that is what it is. We have played better fighting games, especially on the PlayStation. We'll probably play better fighting games in the future. Maybe. We'll see.
If we don't play better than this, we in trouble.
We're gonna be scratching the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
The second question
Next
we
fighting
ask.
game we played Clay Fighters. Anyways.
The second question we ask of every game that we play: would you like to see a remake or a reimagining in a modern setting?
So I know we had that whole conversation before, so I shouldn't repeat myself. But fuck it, I'm gonna repeat myself. Just make another fucking Star Wars fighter.
That's it. It's really is.
I would love a reimagining. I don't think I would like a direct remake of this game.
For the lulz, I would. Because just imagine this game gets remade from the ground up and it plays like Tekken 8, but better or some shit.
That's
and it's
fair.
like an Evo. That'd be hilarious.
There are so many different because the story is interesting. And it's interesting. You remake it, build a story mode. You could do it. I think I would like more of a reimagining that more incorporates all of the Star Wars we have now and not just what we had then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's more for a joke. In realistic setting, yes, I want a reimagining. Again, I think I made the comment that you could do two separate games earlier, but I think it'd be better if you just did one massive one. You know, go full Marvel vs. Capcom 3 size roster. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but less repeats.
Do the what is it? Is it Budokai Tenkaichi 3 where like literally every Dragon Ball character is playable?
Just wait till
Do that with
Sparking
Star
Zero
Wars.
comes out this year and it has 10,000 Dragon Ball characters.
That's what we should make.
And all of them are Goku.
Every single character that's ever appeared in Star Wars is a playable character.
I want the blue fucker from Jabba's palace.
Max Rebo.
Max Rebo. That
Playing the
that
piano.
guy. Yeah, and he hits you with the piano.
Look,
That's his attack.
I want to see a fight between
I want
Max Rebo and Salacious B. Crumb.
I was going to say Max Rebo and the Jizz Musicians. Playing that jizz music. Anyway, there's a lot of potential in the Star Wars universe. I think we've talked about this when we talked about Racer's Revenge and other Star Wars games. There's a lot of potential in video games that sadly currently is not being really touched very often because...
What are you talking about? We're getting Star Wars Outlaws, baby.
I really want that one to be good because I really like some of the character designs, but I have no faith in Ubisoft. Anyway, that's that right there.
Yeah.
That's
except
a nutshell.
I don't even have. I like the character designs because I haven't seen enough of them.
That's fair.
I've seen the base character and I'm like, that's a woman. That makes it.
That sounded bad, Thomas.
It's just a generic person.
It is just generic.
I'm not saying the game's gonna be bad because there's a woman in it. Jesus fuck, I'm not one of them, I promise.
That was the quickest backtracking I've ever
It's just
heard
going,
anybody.
oh no, what have I
Because
said?
as soon as I said it, I'm like, oh fuck.
I couldn't hear it in your brain, the tire screeching sound.
Because as soon as I said it, I'm like, oh fuck.
To kind of put it on there, the character, she doesn't look as cool as, say, someone, what was the girl, Dr. Aphra from the comic series, who has got a very iconic look to her on it, where I think that's what they were trying to do, but not doing her look type of thing.
I don't
She
know
does
who
go
that
there.
is. So-
It's perfectly fine. It's from the Marvel comic series of Star Wars. I know way too much about Star Wars.
I mean, I've read one of those books.
But I think what we can say here is we would really like to see some Star Wars games, this
Yes.
licensed potential. Like I said, whether that's in a big, Marvel vs. Capcom fighting game, or even just doing another Tekken Street Fighter style game, or Soul Calibur, or do your own type of thing. Star Wars Arena Fighter.
I don't say just make an arena fighter where you force push people. And it's like Force Unleashed style, so you can charge it up and blast people across the fucking countries.
Star Wars Dynasty Warriors would actually be kind of rad.
Star Wars Dynasty Warriors would be kind of sick. I'm not gonna lie.
I kind of would play that.
Also, I looked up the Star Wars Outlaw character. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking of, because I did not think she looked like that. Anyway,
Happens.
still looks generic, but
Don't worry, Star Wars Outlaw, more than a woman.
Anyways,
Anyways,
a misogynist rolling along.
Put that on your box.
Oh no.
Thank you all for listening. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you like this game, if you're a fan of it, what you would do for a Star Wars fighting game, or any Star Wars anything. Send us an email to bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. That's bleepyouplaying@gmail.com.
Do you want to play the other Star Wars? Do you want us to play the other Star Wars fighting game, or watch a Star Wars, or read a Star? No, we're not doing a fucking reading.
What the bleep are you reading?
Oh, Christ.
But yeah, you can actually make us watch or play Star Wars by subscribing over on our Patreon, patreon.com/whatthebleep. We have a tier, our Super Bleep Head tier. You can become a Super Bleep Head for $15 a month, and you can tell us to play a game or watch a film, and we'll do it, as long as it doesn't break the bank. You can also find us over on our YouTube. We're going to be getting a lot of cool stuff in the future. Go and hit that subscribe button over there if you go and visit us. We got some tier lists, and we might have some more surprises coming. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back next time. Burn it.